Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everyone. Today is an important day for Canada. It's an important day for space, and I would say an important day for Canada's space capacity. We're here because Canada is ready to continue its legacy as a leader in spaceflight. Our history in space is long, proud, and uniquely Canadian. Depuis le lancement d'Alouette 1 en 1962, qui a fait de nous la troisième nation à mettre son propre satellite en orbite, jusqu'au célèbre Canadarm, le Canada s'est taillé une place de choix dans les partenariats spatiaux internationaux. Nous sommes un acteur de premier plan et un partenaire important. We all saw this as we followed Canadian Colonel Jeremy Hansen's recent journey as part of the Artemis II mission. It sparked renewed hope and wonder for millions of Canadians. It reminded us all to look up, to imagine what's possible, and to consider the future we can shape together. It reminded us that Canada's role in space exploration is an important one. This is clear in the way that Canada's space program has become more dynamic than ever. In 2022 alone, the Canadian space sector reached new heights. Its revenues reached more than $5 billion and contributed over $3 billion to our GDP. Our space workforce grew nearly 6%, creating a record of close to 14,000 high-quality jobs from coast to coast to coast. However, this industry is still rapidly expanding. By 2032, the global space industry is expected to grow by 215% to $1.5 trillion. Canada has reached the moon, but still lacks its own way, its own sovereign way to space. And that changes today. That's why I am proud to announce that I introduced the Canadian Space Launch Act in Parliament. This act will deliver Canadian sovereign space launch capabilities. Cette loi permettra de mettre en place un secteur canadien dédié aux lancements spatiaux et aux rentrées atmosphériques. C'est une initiative qui s'inscrit dans la suite logique de l'évolution des activités spatiales au Canada. Canada is the only country in the G7 to not have its own space launch capabilities. Currently, we must rely on foreign countries, most often the United States, to get Canadian satellites in orbit. This reliance on the U.S. sends investment out of our country, creates costly delays, and leaves critical infrastructure exposed to decisions beyond our control. The Canadian Space Launch Act establishes the framework needed for sovereign space launch and re-entry. Should this act pass the House of Commons, we can create a commercial space industry right here in Canada that could be worth $40 billion. This act empowers Canada to create and implement a modern regulatory framework, enabling Canada to authorize, regulate, and oversee homegrown space launches and re-entries. The proposed legislative amendments involved would eliminate duplication, close key regulatory gaps, and allow Transport Canada to tailor its approach to the risks unique to space launches and re-entries. They would also introduce a modern financial responsibility, liability and indemnification framework, risk-informed safety and security requirements, and more structured approaches to land use. By enabling end-to-end solutions, where we can launch Canadian technology from Canadian soil, we're unleashing our full and sovereign potential. The potential to drive growth in aerospace and satellite communications, open new market opportunities, and foster innovation. And we obviously have the potential to create even more good Canadian jobs in this sector. This is just the beginning. A sovereign launch capability would help Canada better predict and combat wildfires, protect marine life, and support Arctic security. It will also support national security in line with our goal of achieving sovereign space launch capabilities, would unlock billions of dollars in economic growth and thousands of high-skilled jobs across the country. That is why we are already seeing increased activity across Canada. Companies like Nordspace, a homegrown Canadian firm based in Ontario, are helping lead the way by developing one of Canada's first commercial spaceports. On peut penser aussi à des innovateurs comme Réaction Dynamique, qui développent au Québec des fusées de pointe. Les partenaires de l'industrie ont déjà beaucoup investi dans le secteur spatial canadien et ils attendaient de nous que nous rendons possible aujourd'hui et que nous puissions les aider à réaliser leurs ambitions. Et à partir d'aujourd'hui, on fera du Canada un leader dans les lancements spatiaux commerciaux. Ce sont des mesures ambitieuses et elles méritent un cadre réglementaire qui favorise l'innovation canadienne et rien de tout cela ne serait possible sans la vision et le dynamisme de ceux et celles qui nous ont précédés. Je pense notamment à mon regretté collègue Marc Garneau, qui a eu cette inspiration-là pendant qu'il était ministre des Transports. Astronaute, défenseur sans relâche de leadership canadien dans l'espace, je tiens encore une fois à rendre hommage à la vision et à l'ambition de M. Garneau. With the proposed Canadian Space Launch Act, we will do more than keep pace. We will set a new course and invite a new era of achievement. And finally, we will ensure that when Canadians look to the stars, we see a future built here, built for Canada, built for Canadians, and built to serve the world. Merci beaucoup.
L'usage mixte civil et militaire avec ce que vous annoncez aujourd'hui. Où est votre collègue ministre de la Défense?
Monsieur McGuinty, je peux vous assurer totalement, je peux pas répondre à la question où est-il parce qu'il est un homme très, très occupé, mais je peux vous assurer que le domaine militaire et avec les investissements accrus que nous avons en défense vont nous habiliter et vont nous préparer à être capables de dépenser plus de notre argent en défense ici au Canada, garder toutes les chaînes d'approvisionnement ici au Canada. Donc, le ministère de la Défense est l'un des instigateurs de ce que nous faisons aujourd'hui.
Le Canada se trouve à accélérer la militarisation de l'espace avec ce qui est annoncé aujourd'hui?
Non, pas du tout. Le Canada se donne une grande part de ce marché grandissant, qui est la télécommunication. Évidemment, nous voyons ce qui se passe au niveau d'Internet. On a Télésat, notamment à Gatineau, qui prépare un réseau de satellites qui vont pouvoir offrir une alternative canadienne dans l'espace d'accès à Internet. Donc, moi, je pense que ce que nous faisons, c'est que nous repatrions de l'argent qui va se dépenser, qui aurait été dépensé ailleurs dans le monde. Et le Canada se donne les capacités pour pouvoir créer des jobs ici, avec nos technologies, avec nos gens et avec nos ambitions.
Will we be using these new space launch capabilities as part of the Golden Dome with the U.S.?
No. Well, look, what I'm reflecting is there is a growing market for communications, civilian satellites, civilian launch requirements, but also military launch requirements. Money that militaries around the world, and notably the Canadian Armed Forces, intend to spend. But none of that has anything to do with that project.
Minister, why is it that the Defense Department has now identified space sovereignty as a priority for Canada? What has changed in the world?
Well, I think we've all witnessed the major advances in the use of space for telecommunications, for mapping, for geolocation, you've seen, of course, in the conflict in Ukraine, the intelligence requirements. These are things that Canada cannot permit itself to fall behind on. So this is about giving ourselves the options and the capability of protecting Canada, of making sure our armed forces stay current and on pace with the rest of the world. and that is an important part of why we're here today.
And you alluded to protecting marine life. How does launching things into space protect marine life in layman's terms?
Well, I would invite you to talk to those folks who monitor whether it's currents or temperatures or changes in our ocean ecosystems. They will tell you that space capabilities are absolutely integral to that work.
How soon would you like to see a space launch?
Have you reached some sort of deal with Telesat as part of this announcement, or why did you mention them?
Telesat is, I think, that was announced a couple of years ago, developing its project called Lightspeed, which will offer internet access. I'm not sure I can explain the technology adequately, but it is a Canadian alternative in that space, in that becoming crowded space. I think we know who the other alternatives are, and their launch capability from Canada is currently low to non-existent. So this will offer them a Canadian alternative for that Canadian technology.
But there's no deal in place right now to get them to launch faster or to give them some sort of preference?
Well, they will do like anyone with a satellite will do. They will negotiate with Canadian launch firms and hopefully do that as quickly as we're able to get this capacity up and rolling.
Have you spoken to Jeremy Hansen about this at all?
I think he's a very busy guy right now. I just want to say how, again, reiterate how inspired we were by Jeremy Hansen, and we have representatives of the Canadian Space Agency with us today. The fact that Jeremy Hansen has kind of renewed our enthusiasm for space and its possibilities is absolutely, a catalyst for what we're doing today.
We've seen North Space kind of struggle to get a suborbital rocket into space. Is this
who struggled?
North Space, the
Space.
company in Newfoundland? Is this legislation supposed to help them achieve that or go beyond? How does legislation change things?
Well, this will allow an industry to grow where it currently cannot because there is an absence of regulation. So this will set up a regulatory system that people all around the world will want to be able to rely on, including people who are participating from Canada, perhaps even notably firms that are interested in investing in this sector in Canada.
How soon could we see, is there a timeline? How soon could we see, I guess, a rocket into space's orbit?
So this legislation is enabling legislation. It will allow us to put that regulatory framework in place, but I think you're talking, 2 to 3 years. Yep.
What are you expecting from the opposition? Have you spoken to them about this coming? Or?
I have not spoken with the opposition. I look forward to participating in debate in the House with them when we call this at second reading. But I think everyone will see the possibilities that this sector offers, and I can't imagine that it wouldn't have broad appeal.
Looking long term, are we looking to get our own space crew into space one day?
So this is about launching satellites. The space agency, of course, has a partnership, a series of international partnerships, most notably, perhaps because of Artemis with NASA. And we will continue to participate in those programs as aggressively as we have before. Yep. Okay, merci.